Final Four is set on the boys and girls side in AAA. I know one person that can break down AAA like nobody's business. Matt Hatfield of VirginiaPreps.com, Hatfield Sports. You can find him all over the internet, all over the radio dial in the Virginia Beach area and more. He joined me to break down the two games on the girls side, Highland Springs and Princess Anne, as well as Woodside against Oakton. And then he looks at the boys side as well, Hampton and Henrico, Petersburg and Canuckton. Who does he see advancing and winning it all? Find out with Matt Hatfield. He breaks down AAA basketball on the Sports Buffet podcast.
A fun time for me always at the end of basketball season is the state tournament, getting to see fellow media colleagues, friends, and people who are just supremely knowledgeable in basketball. And that's one of these guys that we have right here with us now, Matthew Hatfield, VirginiaPreps.com. And Matt, we could probably take another 10 minutes of the interview just to list all of your titles. You're definitely a busy bee when it comes to AAA sports.
Yes, Bob. Good to talk to you as always. It's a great time of year for me. March Madness, you got the college basketball going on, and for junior high school hoops, this is what we've been counting down weeks and days to. That's the AAA State Final Four coming up with the girls and the boys. Should be some great games in the semifinals, and I expect even better games for us in the finals as well.
It's going to get underway Wednesday, and we'll go ladies first. How good do you think the field is of the four that have made it to the Siegel Center?
I think of the four teams remaining, this is probably true of both the girls and the boys this year. Anybody could win the whole thing, and you can make a compelling case for any of the four. You look at each team's strengths, each team's weaknesses. There's nothing glaring that says this is going to prevent them from winning two games, because they've all won upwards of 20, 25-plus games. And if a couple teams here, 29, 30 games, they have Division I talent on the floor. They'll be playing college hoops in a year or a couple of years. They have underclassmen that have contributed. They've overcome bad spells of play, more so than a couple of the boys' teams than the girls. I don't think there's anything that really, at this point of the year, separates some of these teams from the other team by a wide margin or substantial margin, which is great for fans because that should give us compelling close games. In the past, we've had some championship games that are finals that are blowouts, but these teams really, the margin that separates them really razor thin this year. I think that stems from the state level to the regional level, because they've all had some really tight regional matchups throughout much of the year, and they've gotten to this point, and it's even closer, I think.
The defending champ is back on the girls' side in Princess Anne. They're going to match up with Highland Springs at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. How do you see this matchup breaking down?
Really impressed with Highland Springs' quickness at the guard spot. Coach Franklin Harris has some young ladies that are just really extremely quick, getting into spots on the floor offensively and then applying pressure defensively. They want to play a full court. I think even more so than Princess Anne, which said goodbye last year to All-American Senator Elizabeth Williams, the number one rated player in the country, who's now only a freshman All-American at Duke. They also lost Misha Powell and some other quality young ladies, but they've got three Division I players this year, headlined by Alicia Goodhope, who's trying to play her college basketball at Old Dominion. I think really the matchup to watch is going to be Goodhope being here defended by Drew Robinson or Jasmine Dabney, the two guards for Highland Springs. If they can contain Goodhope getting in the lane, in transition and scoring, I think Princeton's going to have a hard time to score easy baskets, although they did get a great step up from Asia Foyter last game out in the quarterfinals, winning that one at Potomac, the Northwest Region champ. Rita Powell's a quality talent going to Richmond. She can score from Foyter to Radford, so they've got players that can score. I would give the slight edge to Highland Springs, being that they're on the Siegel Center Four. They've played there twice this year, but it's hard to count out Darnell Dozier, Princess Anne, a guy that's won 92% of his games, a guy that's won 9 regional titles, going for a 5th state championship. Princess Anne is the powerhouse girls basketball program in the state here in the past decade, and you never pick or bet against them. I think on paper, Highland Springs has a slight edge, but if Princess Anne has the lead in the third or fourth quarter, hard to think they're going to lose.
Yeah, and one thing, just looking at the state program, Highland Springs state tournament history, according to the VHSL, 0. You look at Princess Anne, you mentioned 8 times to the semis, 4 times the champions. how much do the intangibles play, you think, in terms for everybody, not just Dozier and Coach Harris, but all parties involved?
Well, you hit on a great point. There's no substitute for experience at this point of the year, Bob. And for Highland Springs, they've never been in this setting before. They've had a tremendous season. But again, they've got a young team with 6 sophomores. Looking at their roster, you've got also 4 juniors. So Princess Anne lost the best player in the country, Williams, but they won state championships before her, and they'll win some after her. I don't think that their program is ultimately defined by one player. It's defined by what Coach Dozier has done with his system and constant hustle on the defensive end, sharing the basketball on the offensive end. I think at this point in the year, that's certainly something that you lean on, and we'll get to that in a little bit on the boys' side, because I think that's going to be certainly a thing that will be a possible advantage for a couple of teams there.
The other semi on the girls' side is Oakton and Woodside. Oakton, the Northern Region champion, Woodside, the Eastern Region champion. So obviously they had to knock off Princess Anne in that regional final. Size this one up for me.
Yeah, Woodside really was just incredibly impressive against Princess Anne in the Eastern Region final. Starting the third quarter with a 17-0 run. They started the first quarter against William Foreman in the state quarters with a 12-0 run. Mike Allen's team, another one of those coaching greats here in the state girls basketball. He's got maybe the best tandem in the state this year with Alicia Bell, who's headed to Delaware, and Adrian Motley, a junior guard, who's really become a total playmaker here in this postseason. 22 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists in that 55-42 quarterfinal triumph over William Fleming. I think in this game, though, Oakton comes in undefeated. You feel like they have maybe better outside shooting. They got the Coyer sisters, of course, and Caroline and Catherine, that can really strike from the outside. Coach Fred Priester's team always has done a magnificent job shooting the 3 ball. Even the year they lost to Princess Anne in the state final just a few years back, set a state tournament record for threes made in the game. So you know they're going to spread the floor, get good looks from the outside. They're going to come at you in bunches with those outside jumpers. I would give the slight nod to Woodside. I think they've played slightly better competition throughout the course of the year. I don't think that they're much better than Oakton, but I think Motley, the way she's getting in the lane and creating not just for herself, but her teammates as well, drawing the double teams, kicking it to the Oakton teammate, I think that would give Woodside the slight edge in this game. You look at Oakton's team, though, they've got a good number of players that are used to the spot. I mean, 7 seniors, they have good experience on their side. Woodside, though, might have the best junior player in the state, Motley, and I think in a tight game, down the wire, 2 minutes to go, she'll make a play. It's the difference.
Everybody always can look at the brackets in what single A, double A, triple A, it doesn't matter. And normally they size up, well, normally this region is good, normally that region is good. For people who don't follow triple A, kind of break down the regional aspect in girls of where normally strong teams and what regions are kind of looked down on as being normally this region doesn't have a team coming out of it too strong. So, I don't want to say we look at them less, but, they're the lesser of the 4 per se.
I think the strongest region this year, not just this year, but in recent years, has been the Eastern region, which is where Princess Anne comes from, Woodside, as well as Lake Taylor, who lost to Princess Anne 2 years ago in the regional final, then turned around and beat them in the state final. This could be the second time in 3 years that we have an All-Eastern Region final and state championship. Really, to be honest with you, I'd say right now of the 4 if you had a ranking, we go East 1, probably the North 2. Oakton's really led the way for them there. I would say the Central Region is 3. College Springs had a great year. Monacan made the state playoffs. Coffey's doing a great program under Rachel Meade. Northwest is probably 4. I know they had a state runner-up a year ago in Stonewall Jackson, but a lot of people felt that Potomac would be a state championship caliber team. They fell short to the region runner-up in the East and Princess Anne. Good basketball there, but probably not the pedigree and tradition and history of maybe like the East and the North.
And hopping over to the guys, it's I'm going to bet money that the team is winning this thing is going to come out of the Central or the Eastern regions. That's the only 2 regions that are represented in this. Take me through the first matchup featuring the Central Region champion Petersburg at 3:45 on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's a great pick there, Bob, because it's going to be Eastern Central definitely taking home the state title. And The East has dominated for many years on the boys' side as well. I mean, you see the last 3 state championships coming from the Eastern region in Tidewater, with Norcom winning back-to-back, and Kingsport the year before that. They've got a long history of getting it done. Petersburg, the program now, it's been in the state tournament. It's their 4th time in 5 years. They've been coming ever so close under Bill Lawson. Now they got a first-year head coach in Rick Height. They have the best senior guard in the state. I don't even say it's arguably, I'd say no question. And Frank Mason, senior, headed to Towson to play his college hoops. Just a tremendous player. And he's the guy that's trying to lead Petersburg to their first state title since 1974 in the days of Moses Malone. And what you like about Mason is he's a guy that's going from being just a scorer at the guard spot to a player who's raised his total basketball IQ, making teammates around him better. And then he's got a nice compliment at Marcus Hoosier right next to him. Petersburg has the edge of the guard spot in this game. Where Tickleton has the edge is they might have more overall talent and depth than Petersburg. Petersburg had a couple of players who were eligible second semester, and then that's one of them out there. Tickleton has had this year about 9 different players score in double figures on the year. So they have a number of guys that can score. They don't rely on just Marcus Hoosier and Frank Mason like Petersburg does to score. And what Tickleton's been, well, they've had those 9 guys in double figures, and they've made over 193 pointers this year, about 55 of them from Josh Fortune, the 6'5" swingman headed to Providence. They turn the ball over frequently. They had 3 straight games of 20 turnovers or more going into the state state quarterfinals on Saturday in their win against Garfield, the Northwest Region champion. If Tickleton doesn't protect the basketball, they will lose this game despite being maybe more talented, having better size, having better length in the front court. Key player in the game that will probably decide if Tickleton wins or Petersburg wins is probably the 6'7" junior forward for the Warriors, Rajay Bullock. He's a guy that can score inside and out, matchup nightmare. He's had a bad ankle here of late. If he can come into this game and play at a high level, rebound the basketball, contest shots from the defensive end, and stay out of foul trouble, I'd give Tickleton the win. Right now, I think Petersburg's playing a little bit more consistent in terms of taking care of the basketball. I'd give them maybe a 2 to 4 point advantage in this one.
I think there are 2 types of teams that turn the ball over. One team that just, turns it over just because they're trying to do too much, but then a team that turns it over just because they try to play too fast. Which one describes Kecoughtan?
I would say it's probably a team that sometimes plays too fast. It's a lack of focus. Sometimes a lackadaisical instructions. Even their coach, Ivan Thomas, will admit that. He's a guy that's won a state championship at T.C. Williams back in 2008. And sometimes you just don't see the passion on the floor, but they're now squid away. I don't think there will be any lack of passion or focus or desire at this point. They're going to go into this game with Petersburg, who's been ranked number 1 in the state here for a good chunk late in the year, as maybe not necessarily an underdog at this point of the year, but the team that's not expected to win this game, which is odd because Tickleton was our preseason number 1 team in the state. But this is a heavyweight bout. There's no doubt about it. Either team can win this game and then turn around and win the final. A lot of people will pick the winner of this game to be the favorite in the final. I'm not quite positive of that just yet. But Tickleton's got guys that can handle the ball. It's just going to be a matter of can they get them a consistent rhythm and flow. And what will help them in terms of not turning the ball over, even though it's going to make sense to a lot of people, is making outside shots. Because if they get in a rhythm where they hit 3 or 4 threes in a row in this game, it can take a 2 or 4 point game to a wide lead at about 8 to 10 points. I think that'll allow them to settle in and be locked in and not have to rush or hurry or do things out of character.
The other matchup features Hampton and Henrico, and, I'm sitting here looking at the program, and Hampton just kind of looks a little small to me. I don't know, if I was expecting a land of Andre the Giants or whatnot, but they just don't look like an incredibly big team. I look at the roster of Henrico, and they do have a little bit of size here and there, but they're not giants either. Take me through Hampton first off and tell me what makes this strong basketball tradition another one for the Crabbers.
Well, I think what makes Hampton so good is just the athletes they get at that school. You go back to the 1990s when they had Ronald Curry, a 2-sport star that won state titles in football and basketball. You go to the 2000s, they had someone who's now in the NFL playing with the Baltimore Ravens. He was a football star and played basketball. Coach Walt, a guy with over 500 career wins on his resume. At Hampton, that program really gets it done on the defensive end. They're locked in there, play with great tenacity, and then they don't beat themselves with a lot of mistakes. And when they beat Ticotin in the region final, it was the fourth meeting between the two schools, and really the third win for Hampton to lose in the first one. But you look at Ticotin, they're 15, 20 points better, but Hampton didn't make many mistakes. They were patient on the offensive end, played with a lot of poise, and the reason they're playing with poise is they've got the best junior guard in the state. No questions asked, and Anthony Big Cat Barber. A lot of people would love to see a Barber versus Mason of Petersburg, Frank Mason, matchup in the state final. We might get it, but in order for that to happen, he's going to need his teammates around him to step up and score here. Jordan Baker, Sammy Royal, Trey Perry, those guys have done that throughout the course of the year. Sammy Royal had 14 points in their quarterfinal win over Osborne, including 10 in the first quarter as Big Cat got off to a slow start. And Barber then heated up quickly and ended up with 24 points, 9 boards, 5 assists, 4 steals. And Rico's a team, Bob, that might be the quickest team in the state, which will make this game fascinating because Barber's probably the quickest guard in the state, and Rico has the quickest guards in the state. They've got 3 or 4 guards with pro action with Jordan Talley, with Tim Jones, and you look at guys that can play inside out, Evan Thorpe's another guy for them that can do that. They've got a lot of guys that can score points in bunches. They got on the year 9 guys hovering around 7 to 14 points per game. And when they get those guys going, whether it's Tim Jones, Jordan Talley, Jay Allen, Evan Thorpe, they're hard to beat because they really push the pace. They're averaging 83.7 points per game. They've scored over 105 times. They want to make this an up-tempo game. And Rico would have the edge, in my opinion, but 2 things that give the edge to Hampton because of. One, Henrico's had trouble with the foul line. We saw it cost Petersburg a state championship 2 years ago against Norcom when they were 13 to 30 at the stripe. Henrico's missed 15 free throws or more in 3 straight games. They're lucky to be 2-1 in that stretch. They're not a kick-a-tan situation with those turnovers, lucky to get to this point, even though they're a good enough team to win this whole thing, Henrico is. And 2, while I think Henrico has the matchup advantages, you can't bet against Barber at this point. This is a kid who's gone to the foul line on average of 15 times per game in the postseason. He's making his, and he's a guy that can really change this game. And Rico could be winning for 3 quarters, but in the 4th quarter, you got to like Hampton and Barber. They've got 10 wins this year by 6 points or less. And at this stage of the year, a great player can take you a long ways.
I want to get your take on a player from each tournament, whether it be girls' tournament and guys' tournament, that's really going to make the people at the Siegel Center wowed. But before I ask you that, I want to ask you this. You know, I've seen single A games, I've seen double A games. Last year I stayed and watched the whole tournament, and for some reason the single A crowd and the double A crowd differs from the triple A crowd, and it's not necessarily in terms of, you know, number of people in the seats, but it just feels like a different atmosphere there. How would you describe a triple A state semifinal or state final game at the Siegel Center?
Well, I think it's, to them, they're almost used to these type of championship games. Not to say that the double A and single A's aren't,
right?
Just because the triple A's play so many games. You take a look at the Central Region and Eastern Region playoffs, there were teams in both playoffs. I could make a case could have won the state title. I'm not just saying, well, you know, if they hit X number of shots, they do this, they get there. There were really good teams. I go through the list of them: L.C. Bird, John Marshall, Lansdowne, Minchville, Mins River, you name them. Teams that had 20-plus wins on the year, teams that had scholarship players that are going to want to play college, teams that had player of the years in their districts, are all region, all state candidates, and they're used to rivalry games. They're packed to crowds. They're used to big game environments. I think you get those in the single A or double A, but at this point of the year, it's almost like a celebration for us. For some of these teams from the Central regions, the Eastern regions, and you can even take in the case of the North and Northwest. They're not here, but it's almost like it's a continuation of what they've been doing all year long. You can see in the final, Henrico and Petersburg, and they met in the Central Region Championship, so it's in Chapter 2, and you can see in the state final for boys, Ticotin and Hampton for the 5th meeting this year. So they've already played each other 4 times. They're familiar with one another. I think the fans are really close to one another. They're familiar with each other, almost like the players are. So I think that's where probably the environment comes in. I think you're more used to these type of situations and settings and games and atmosphere.
Give me the player that's going to have people talking back, or have people talking after they watch this tournament in the boys and the girls ranks.
Well, I'll start off with the girls. I would say it's Adrian Motley. She's a junior. She's getting Division I looks, ACC Big East schools. She can really catapult herself into the national rankings if Woodside's able to win these next two games, like I think they might. And she's really just been a great guard, not only scoring the basketball, but as I said, distributing, setting her teammates up, and really playing with such a high basketball IQ. On the boys' side, I got to go with Petersburg's Frank Mason. He's going to Towson. A lot of people thought he could go at a higher level, and not to say CAA basketball ain't great, because they've obviously sent some teams to the Final Four here in recent years in VCU, and George Mason and others have had success too. But Mason just has become a more complete guard, making better decisions. In the past, when he was a freshman and sophomore, I think if you got him cornered, he'd even admit, you know what, I was just letting it go and letting it fly from 30 feet, and I'd make some, I'd miss some. Wasn't always taking the best shots. His shot selection's improved. His understanding of the game has gotten better. And I think Frank Money Mason, which has really become his nickname this year, will be money in crunch time. And if Petersburg's to win these two games coming up, win the semifinals, and then get to the finals and win, it'll be because he leads them there with big performances, scoring, setting guys up, and also on the defensive end, too.
Guns at your head, you want to make a pick in each?
I'll leave with those two dominant players. I think there's other players that can be dominant, but I would say that Motley and Bell will lead Woodside to the state final win. And I'd say over Highland Springs, wouldn't be surprised if they see Princess Anne again. And Princess Anne's a team you look at the defending champ until they're beaten, they're the team. But I'll go with Woodside and the girls. This comes to my head. And the boys side, I really think each team has a 25% chance. You just get the feeling, and I've made this statement before, a lot of times you get in pro sports that the best team of a team doesn't always win. Petersburg's had better teams than they have this year, but something about their chemistry, something about not being favored or having the pressure to win it. They've had undefeated teams losing the state playoffs. They lost one game this year, but they really don't have the expectations of that team this year with no dominant big man or trees on the front line. I'll give them the slight nod over Hampton in a great final, which would be, if I'm not mistaken, a rematch of the state championship game back in 1989 when they played and Hampton won. But I'll go with Petersburg over Hampton and the boys, and I'll take Woodside girls to win it.
I always say when it comes to AAA and Matt Hatfield, I trust. Matt, as always, appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you in Richmond, and definitely thank you for dropping some AAA basketball knowledge on us here on the Sports Buffet.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Have a good one.